So hello and welcome to the video. Remember me? It's been almost a year since I released a video onto this channel, and that was never the plan. But I have been on a couple of cruises since that last video, and I'm going on another one next week. So there will be some new content on this channel over the next couple of months, starting off with my experiences on P&O's shiny new Arvia ship, which I want to talk about in this video. But I also want to talk briefly about why there has been a hiatus to my content on this channel. So if you'd like to know what's been going on, stick around. Hi, I'm Matt and I love cruising. I love the ships, the places you visit, the entertainment, and every now and again I'll also enjoy a drink. So subscribe to the channel so you can come with me on my next cruise. Now, if you watch the content I release on my other channel where I talk about my aviation adventures, you'll have a pretty good idea of what's going on because I've talked about it twice in videos over on that channel. But the long and the short of it is that a couple of days after Christmas last year, I was diagnosed with prostate cancer, a wonderful Christmas present from the NHS. As I say, there's two videos over on my other channel which talk about this process in great detail. I'll provide a link to them in the description below, and I won't talk in detail about what happened here. But I will repeat that whilst I do have cancer, it is a very, very small tumour, it is very ungrumpy, and it is completely contained within my prostate. So whilst the medical professions could attack it immediately and there would be a very good prospect of a complete recovery if they did so, the consequences on me of any treatment now would be worse in the short to medium term than doing nothing. So my treatment at the moment is what's known as active surveillance. I go and have regular tests, and as long as things stay the same and the effect of any treatment would be worse than the effect of doing nothing, I will continue to do nothing. That may sound illogical, it may even sound irresponsible, but having gone through this now with a number of medics, I'm very relaxed about this approach and really do agree that it is the right way to go forward. I am fine. Indeed, we were very lucky to find it this early, if lucky is the right word. I really am fine. Now, my cruise on P&O's Arvia fell right in the middle of that diagnosis journey. The day before that cruise last October, I was seeing my GP the day before we drove to Southampton and left that meeting with an urgent referral to a urologist. The day we spent in Gibraltar, I spent an hour, possibly two, on the phone back home to the hospital trying to arrange appointments. And on the day we docked back into Southampton, I had to beetle home because that afternoon I was in the hospital having tests. So whilst I videoed the cruise pretty much as normal, I have to say that these medical issues did get in the way of my enjoyment a little. And when the cruise ended and my diagnosis journey was still going on through till Christmas, I can't say I was wildly motivated to make videos about this experience. And now, several months later, I still want to share the experience, but I don't now feel I can give it the sort of care and attention that I would normally do if I were making videos directly after a cruise. Which is a little bit annoying, particularly as this was an excellent experience. I did though make a cabin tour video which will be released on the channel in the next week or two, and for the rest of this video I'm just going to sum up my experiences. It was really good, really good actually. I'd previously sailed on P&O's Azura and I speculated after that cruise as to whether that was really the experience that P&O wanted to give you. But I can emphatically conclude that P&O did a much better job on the Arvia. It was a 13-night trip from Southampton to Barcelona and back again. Only 4 ports within those 13 nights though, including an overnight stay in Barcelona, which I'd say wasn't enough for a cruise of that length. But I was travelling with my mum who no longer flies, so it was great to be able to reach somewhere warm on an autumn cruise with just a drive to Southampton at the beginning and end. It's a big ship, the biggest ship I've ever been on, and even bigger than the MSC Virtuosa, which I've covered a couple of times on this channel. But it's very well designed and it really doesn't feel that big. The central atrium area covers 3 decks and is perhaps a quarter of the ship long, Even when we experienced bad weather and the open decks weren't an option, and we experienced a lot of bad weather on this cruise, it was always possible to find a seat inside. 5,000 guests were aboard, but it never really felt like there were that many. The shows and the sit-down dining venues all need to be booked, and the shows could sell out, but the app is pretty good and virtual queues managed your wait time such that your movement around the ship was really very smooth and was rarely affected by queuing. I should mention that one area where P&O did struggle was around the pool. On the days that it was warm, if you didn't have a lounger staked out by 9 AM, it became a challenge to get one. And I've read since that it can be even tougher and the loungers get claimed even earlier during the school holidays. Another really clever design feature was built around the drinks packages. Now, we'd sprung for the premium package purely for research purposes, you understand. And there were a couple of bars where the menus were made up almost entirely of premium package items. It worked almost invisibly to stream people towards different venues depending on their package, and it meant that none of them got wildly crowded except perhaps the pub when the football was on. My favourite venue was definitely Anderson's Bar, which had some very interesting rums and quite a few premium gins too. My largest criticism of the drinks package was that the cocktail selection in most of the menus was very small. Some very smart bars only had a handful of cocktails, and the bartenders refused to make anything that wasn't on their menu, even if it was on another menu or if you could explain precisely how to make it. It was a little disappointing, especially having paid a fair premium for that premium package. Moving on to the food, and I also thought that was pretty good. There's two main dining rooms, the only real difference being that one had tablecloths whilst the other didn't. You could book those ahead of sailing, but only I believe up till 6:30, after which you'd need to join a virtual queue for a seat. There were a couple of other free venues that were only accessible through a virtual queue, the Olive Grove and the 6th Street Diner. All of the free venues were good, with a good variety of dishes on offer. And the ability to mix up the food experience with the different style of dining was particularly welcome, especially on a 13-night cruise where 13 visits to the main dining room could have become very repetitive. We were a little bit anxious about using the virtual queues, but we dived in and quickly got the hang of them. And we found them to be pretty efficient. We never waited more than perhaps 15 minutes for a table, which in the scale of things is absolutely fine. And of course, the ship offers a number of dining options available at an additional fee. The highlight for me was the Sindhu Indian restaurant, which offered excellent, very, very rich food in very large quantities. If you're going to pay for food or drink when you're aboard, I thought the pricing was very reasonable. So to the entertainment, which again I thought was really good, even if there were one or two areas for improvement. The main theatre offered the usual mix of guest entertainers and production shows. The usual sort of stuff. Highlights were a George Michael tribute from Andrew Browning, and Neil Lockwood, who was part of the band ELO Part 2 for several years. He really knew his way around a guitar, and he was no slouch on the piano either. The production shows were also pretty good, although they didn't allow any filming, so I can't show any of them to you. There were 3 in total, 2 being the usual sort of jukebox musical stuff, with the third being Greatest Days, the Take That story. Gary Barlow works very closely with P&O on their entertainment. Now, I wouldn't describe myself at all as a Take That fan, but I have to say I really enjoyed the show. To give everyone a chance to see the shows, they were all offered on 2 separate nights, which meant, as you could only book to see one of them, there were several nights where you didn't have a main theatre show available to you. There were, though, 2 other venues available to you on those nights. The Clubhouse at the Stern, where some of the headliners offered a second show, get there early for a good seat if they do, and the Sky Dome. By day, this is a pleasant solarium, which means you can have a dip even in the worst weather. But in the evenings, it's used as an entertainment venue. Whoever designed this space should never work in the entertainment business again, as the acoustics of the venue were absolutely terrible. There were 3 or 4 seats dead centre where the audio was tolerable, but anywhere off centre and it was just painful. A couple of entertainers had been booked specifically to perform in this space, and they should ask for compensation from P&O, as the space did them 0 favours. Indeed, I don't think P&O books entertainers specifically for this venue any longer. There were also 3 production shows offered here, performed by a different cast, but again they were offered across 2 nights each. They were more knockabout and slapstick, so the audio abysmalness didn't handicap them too much, and the X show was actually really good fun. So that's my very brief review of the experience, an experience I thoroughly enjoyed, even if I was a little bit distracted by the background noise of my medical issues. And as I hope you've seen, it was a very elevated experience compared to the one that we'd had on the Azura. There's still only 1 daily visit from the cabin attendant, which will annoy some people, but if you see how a cruise on this ship is priced, I can certainly live with that sort of sacrifice if it keeps prices down. And we were actually on the ship when the latest P&O ad was being filmed. Lots of cameras created that Matrix style effect that you see. You may recognise the lady in the pool from the TV ad. She got about 2 seconds of screen time in the finished product, but was in that jacuzzi for hours. It wasn't a luxury experience by any means, and they really need to do something about that Skydome if it's going to remain as an entertainment venue. But overall, it was a really enjoyable cruise, offered at a really decent price, and I really enjoyed it. The Arvia is now probably my favourite cruise ship. So thanks for watching. I really am fine, and although there's not been much for a while, there will be 6 or 7 new videos over the coming weeks. Thanks for your patience, thanks for watching, like, comment, subscribe, you know the drill, and I'll see you all in the next one. Goodbye.